Hello everyone, welcome to SleepSpace. Tonight we will talk about a fascinating idea. Did consciousness choose to become you? This question opens up one of the deepest mysteries about existence. It takes us beyond the scientific study of the brain and into the realm of philosophy, cosmology, and the nature of being itself. At its heart, the question is asking, are you an accident of biology? Or was there some kind of decision by consciousness itself to arrive as the person you know as you? To begin, let's start with something familiar, your sense of I. At this very moment, you have an awareness of yourself, a presence behind your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. It's something that cannot be reduced to a simple object in the world. It isn't your hand, it isn't your eyes, and it isn't even your brain tissue itself. It's the thing that experiences all of these. Philosophers call this the hard problem of consciousness, the mystery of how subjective experience arises. Science can describe neurons firing, chemicals releasing, and networks of brain cells processing information, but it cannot explain why there is something it feels like to be you. Why all this information doesn't just unfold in silence. Some traditions, both ancient and modern, suggest that consciousness itself might be primary, not something generated by matter, but something that exists before matter, and perhaps even before time itself. If that's true, then it opens the possibility that consciousness has a kind of agency, a freedom to manifest, to experience, to enter into forms, which brings us back to the strange idea. Could consciousness itself have chosen to become you? Let's break that down. Imagine consciousness as a vast ocean, an endless expanse, boundless and formless. From that ocean, waves rise and fall. Each wave is distinct, but none are separate from the water. In this metaphor, you are a wave, but the ocean is the deeper consciousness from which you emerged. Did the ocean decide to rise in exactly your shape with your thoughts, your body, your story? Or is it that the ocean simply produces countless waves, and one of them happens to be you? There's another way to think about it. Modern physics tells us that the universe began about 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang. At first, there was only energy, expanding, cooling, forming particles, atoms, stars, planets. Eventually, on Earth, chemistry became biology, and biology evolved into beings with nervous systems capable of perception and thought. You are one of those beings, and your consciousness seems tied to the intricate patterns of your brain. From this perspective, your awareness didn't choose. It arose because evolution sculpted a brain capable of generating it. In this view, the I is a byproduct, not a chooser. But that isn't the only way to frame it. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, for example, suggest that consciousness plays a role in shaping reality. If observation collapses possibilities into actual outcomes, then awareness isn't just a passive passenger. It's actively involved in making reality what it is. If that's true on a deep level, then your very existence may not be an accident. Perhaps the consciousness that you are had to select or enter into this form in order to experience itself in a certain way. Consider also what ancient traditions have said. In Hindu philosophy, there is the concept of Atman, the individual self, and Brahman, the universal consciousness. The two are ultimately one. In this perspective, you are not a fragment of consciousness, but rather consciousness itself appearing as you. The idea of choice becomes subtle here, because if you are consciousness, then the choice wasn't made by something outside of you. It was made by the deepest layer of what you already are. Your life, then, isn't random. It's the unfolding of the universe's own awareness, wearing your face, walking your path. From another angle, let's think about probabilities. The odds of you being born exactly as you are astronomically small. Your ancestors had to meet in very specific ways, stretching back millions of years. If any single event had gone differently, you wouldn't exist. And yet here you are. Some see this as pure chance. Others wonder if chance alone can account for it. Was there an underlying principle, a drive of consciousness itself, guiding events so that you, this particular self, could emerge? This question naturally leads us into debates about free will. If consciousness chose to become you, then does that mean your entire life is predetermined, mapped out by a deeper intelligence before you even began? Or does it mean that consciousness chose to appear as you, but within that form, you still have freedom to act, decide, and create? There are traditions, such as Buddhism, which suggest that there is no fixed self at all, that what you call you is a temporary collection of processes, sensations, and thoughts. But even then, the awareness that observes all of this, where does that come from? Science has tried to pin it down. Neuroscientists can map brain activity and correlate it with decisions. Sometimes they even find that the brain appears to decide before you consciously know it. This challenges the idea of free will in a traditional sense. Yet the fact that you can reflect on these findings shows there is something about you that stands apart from mere mechanics. You are not just reacting, you are observing, questioning, even doubting your own nature. That capacity to doubt is itself mysterious, almost as though consciousness is more fundamental than the processes it studies. Imagine if consciousness were like a beam of light. It shines through many different windows, and each window gives it a slightly different view. One window might be a bird, another a tree, another a human being. Right now, the beam is shining through the window called you. Did the light choose this window? Or was it simply the conditions of this window that allowed the light to pass through? If consciousness chose, then your life has a purpose that runs deeper than you can see. If the window determined it, then you are a temporary configuration of matter that consciousness flows through, with no special decision involved. And yet maybe the distinction between choosing and not choosing isn't so clear. Perhaps both are true in different ways. You, as an individual, did not choose to be born, but consciousness, as the underlying reality, expresses itself through every possible form, including you. In this way, you could say consciousness chose to become everything, and in doing so, it inevitably became you as well. This line of thought brings up another possibility. What if consciousness wanted to experience itself in every possible way? If so, then it had to become every star, every planet, every leaf, every person. And right now, it is experiencing what it's like to be you, your thoughts, your feelings, your life. From this perspective, your existence isn't random. It's necessary. You are one expression among countless others. But without you, consciousness would not know what it's like to be you. That uniqueness is real, and it cannot be replaced. Of course, there's a humility in all this too, because if consciousness became you, it also became everyone else. The person you disagree with, the stranger across the world, the animal in the forest. All are windows for the same underlying awareness. This thought alone can change the way you see the world. If you are consciousness, and so is everyone else, then separateness is an illusion. There is difference, yes, but beneath it all, there is unity. So, did consciousness choose to become you? The truth is, no one can answer with certainty. Science can measure brain waves and chemical reactions, but it cannot tell you why there is an experiencer behind them. Philosophy can pose elegant arguments, but it cannot offer proof. Spiritual traditions can give deep insights, but they remain matters of faith and intuition. What we can do is explore, question, and remain open to the possibility that your very existence is not just a cosmic accident, but part of something vast, intentional, and deeply mysterious. And that's what makes this question worth pondering. Because when you sit quietly with it, you might feel something stir, an intuition that there is more to you than neurons, more than genetics, more than chance. That perhaps in some way beyond words, consciousness really did choose to become you, because without you, its story would be incomplete. To explore the possibility more deeply, let's take a closer look at what it even means to talk about choice at the level of consciousness. When we think of choice in everyday life, we imagine a decision-making process, weighing options, predicting outcomes, selecting one path over another. But when we ask whether consciousness chose to become you, the word choice might not mean the same thing. It may not be the kind of choice that happens in time, after deliberation. Instead, it could be something instantaneous, a kind of timeless inclination, like light shining or gravity pulling. Choice, in this sense, may not be something consciousness does. It may be something consciousness is. Modern cognitive science frames human choice as the result of complex neural computations. Neurons integrate sensory input, memory, and predictive models to generate an action. From this view, your decisions are the output of a biological machine. But even if that's true on the surface level, it doesn't explain why you experience making a decision, why there is an inner witness to the process. The sheer fact that there is a subjective sense of ownership behind your choices hints that something deeper is involved. If consciousness in its fundamental state doesn't operate with the limits of time and space, then perhaps it doesn't make choices the way a human mind does. Instead of picking between options, consciousness may unfold into form the way a seed unfolds into a tree, not by selecting, but by expressing its nature. If so, then your existence is less about a decision being made and more about a natural flowering of something inevitable. Consciousness, being infinite, had to explore itself in infinite ways, and one of those ways is through you. Let's also consider the concept of emergence. In science, emergence refers to complex patterns that arise from simple rules. For instance, water molecules follow basic interactions, but together they form waves, currents, even hurricanes. Ants follow simple behaviors, but collectively they create intricate colonies with specialized roles. Some scientists believe consciousness itself may be an emergent property of brain complexity. Yet emergence doesn't fully account for the inner glow of awareness. A colony of ants behaves intelligently, but does the colony itself feel something? We don't know. In your case, there is definitely an experiencer, so perhaps consciousness doesn't just emerge from matter, perhaps matter emerges within consciousness. This flips the usual scientific story. Instead of saying the brain generates consciousness, we could say consciousness generates the brain, or at least that consciousness shapes the conditions for brains to arise. If that's true, then your birth wasn't just a random result of molecules colliding over billions of years. It was part of consciousness sculpting a particular vessel, one that could reflect and express itself in a way only you can. But here is where the mystery deepens. Why this vessel? Why this specific life and not another? To answer, some traditions turn to the idea of reincarnation. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmologies, consciousness passes through many lives, gathering experiences, learning, evolving. From this perspective, your current self is not a one-time event, but part of a long sequence. If that's true, then consciousness may not just randomly become you. It may have followed a trajectory shaped by past experiences, desires, and unfinished lessons. In that case, your existence now is not just chance, but the result of momentum carried across lifetimes. Even outside of religious traditions, there are modern thinkers who entertain similar ideas. Theories of multiverse in physics suggest that countless versions of reality may exist. In such a framework, every possible outcome happens somewhere. So then, which version of you did consciousness occupy? Out of the infinite possibilities, why this one? Some suggest that consciousness itself may tune into particular versions of reality the way a radio tunes into a frequency. If that's true, then there's a strange kind of choice involved, not a conscious decision in the human sense, but an alignment, a resonance. Consciousness may resonate with the conditions that allow it to experience a specific perspective, and in this case, that perspective is you. Another angle comes from developmental biology. Think of how you began. Two cells merged, and within that zygote, a cascade of processes began. DNA instructed proteins, proteins formed tissues, tissues organized into organs, and slowly a human being emerged. At some point in that process, consciousness became tethered to that form. But when exactly? Was it at conception? Was it when the nervous system reached a certain threshold? Or was consciousness present all along, simply waiting for the body to be ready? If consciousness had agency, then perhaps it chose that moment, that unique intersection, to anchor itself into physical life. Philosophers often debate personal identity. What makes you you instead of someone else? Is it your body, your memories, your personality? Neuroscience shows that memory can be altered, even erased, and personalities can change with injury or trauma. Yet, even if all that shifts, there remains a continuous sense of I am. That core awareness seems untouched. This suggests that identity at its deepest level is not about the content of your life, but about the fact of awareness itself. In this sense, consciousness may not so much choose to become you in the ordinary sense of your personality, but rather it becomes I in countless forms, and one of those is the one you currently inhabit. This brings up the idea of uniqueness. If consciousness is universal, then what makes your version of it distinct? Imagine white light passing through a prism. The light itself is one, but when refracted, it becomes many colors. Each color is unique, yet all are still light. In the same way, consciousness may be one, but when refracted through the conditions of your body, your environment, your culture, it becomes your particular shade of awareness. Did consciousness choose your shade? Or is it that the prism of your biology determined it? Maybe the answer is both. The universal light expresses itself through every prism, and by doing so, it experiences every color. In this metaphor, the choice isn't about one prism being better than another. It's about the light fulfilling itself by shining through all of them. There's also the fascinating perspective from panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is fundamental to all matter. In this view, every particle has some degree of proto-consciousness, and complex arrangements give rise to more complex forms of awareness. If this is true, then the universe is saturated with consciousness, and your emergence isn't about consciousness suddenly appearing, but about it reaching a particular level of integration. The question then shifts. Rather than asking if consciousness chose you, we might ask whether the universe, infused with consciousness at every level, inevitably evolved toward beings like you. In this sense, your existence might feel less like chance and more like destiny. Yet destiny is a tricky word. If everything is predetermined, then where does your freedom fit in? If consciousness chose to become you, does that mean every step of your life was mapped out in advance? Or does it mean only that the starting point was chosen and the unfolding is yours to shape? This tension between determinism and freedom has occupied human thought for centuries. Some argue that free will is an illusion, that every decision is the outcome of prior causes. Others say that the ability to reflect, to pause, to imagine alternatives shows that there is a spark of freedom within us. If consciousness is primary, perhaps both are true. The broad outlines of your life are set, but within them, there is space for improvisation, for creation, for discovery. One way to approach this is through the metaphor of a game. Imagine consciousness creating a vast game world with rules, structures, and challenges. Entering as you is like consciousness choosing an avatar. The terrain is given, the starting conditions are given, but within the game, choices are real. Every action leads to new possibilities. In this way, consciousness may not have chosen the specific outcomes of your life, but it chose to play the game through you, to see what it would be like. This metaphor of play is echoed in ancient traditions too. In Hinduism, there is the concept of Lila, the divine play. The universe is seen not as a serious necessity, but as a joyful exploration of possibility by the ultimate consciousness. If so, then you are part of that cosmic play, an experiment, a story, an experience consciousness wanted to have. Your joys, your struggles, your questions are not accidents, but expressions of that play. Still, this doesn't settle the question, because even if consciousness expresses itself through you, we are left wondering whether it could have been otherwise. Could consciousness have become someone else instead? Was it arbitrary that it became you? This leads us to confront the strangest question of all. Why is there a you at all instead of nothing? Why this perspective, this existence? Why not silence, emptiness, or absence? The fact that you are here, aware of being, is already extraordinary. Perhaps that, in itself, is the answer. Consciousness chose to be you simply because being is more profound than non-being, because to exist in any form is the ultimate choice. And yet, this remains an open mystery. Science, philosophy, and spirituality all circle around it, each offering glimpses but never a final word. Maybe that's part of the beauty. The very uncertainty keeps the question alive, keeps you searching, keeps consciousness marveling at itself through you. Let's imagine for a moment that consciousness really did have some kind of choice in becoming you. That raises an immediate question. Why this particular life? Out of all the countless possibilities, the billions of humans alive today, the uncountable organisms that have existed before and will exist after, why would consciousness settle into your exact form, your exact time, your exact circumstances? One possible answer is that there was something specific to experience, something only possible through your vantage point. Consciousness, in this sense, could be seen as an explorer. Just as an adventurer climbs a mountain not because they have to, but because the climb offers an experience, consciousness may have chosen this life because it presents a set of experiences that cannot be replicated by any other. The combination of your family, your culture, your body, your personality, all of it adds up to a unique journey that no one else can undertake in quite the same way. Think of art. An artist paints not because they must, but because there is a creative impulse, a drive to bring something new into being. In the same way, perhaps consciousness expresses itself as you for the sheer sake of creativity, for the beauty of variation. Each individual then is like a brushstroke on the canvas of existence, contributing to a larger masterpiece that could not be complete without them. From another angle, psychology shows us that people often define themselves by narrative. You think of your life as a story with a beginning, middle, and end. You see yourself as a character moving through challenges, growth, relationships, and meaning. But what if that narrative sense isn't just a byproduct of human cognition? What if it reflects something deeper about consciousness itself? Perhaps consciousness isn't just living through you, it is telling a story through you. In this light, you might ask, what story did consciousness want to tell by becoming me? Consider how stories work. Every character is essential to the narrative, even those that seem minor or overlooked. Remove them and the story changes entirely. In the same way, your life contributes to the unfolding story of the universe in ways you might not even realize. Every choice, every thought, every relationship is like a ripple that spreads outward. Consciousness may have chosen to become you not only for your own experience, but for the web of interactions your life sets into motion. There's also an intriguing idea in evolutionary theory that could connect here. Evolution is often described as a blind process, driven by random variation and natural selection. Yet when we look at its outcomes, we see increasing complexity, increasing capacity for awareness, and eventually beings like us who can reflect on existence itself. Some scientists argue that this trajectory suggests more than blind chance. It suggests direction, as though the universe has been moving toward greater consciousness all along. If that's true, then your existence may not be an accident, but part of this larger movement. You are not just an endpoint, but a continuation of the unfolding of awareness through life. Consciousness choosing you in this context would mean that the entire arc of evolution was leaning towards the possibility of your perspective. But of course, we can't ignore the opposite perspective, one grounded in the randomness of reality. Statistically, the chances of any one person being born are astronomically small. Out of millions of possible genetic combinations, one zygote formed. Out of countless paths your ancestors could have taken, they followed this one. Out of the entire sweep of time, you are here now. This could be pure coincidence. The universe is vast, and coincidences happen. Perhaps consciousness didn't choose, it simply arose, and the fact that it arose as you is remarkable but not intentional. And yet there's something unsatisfying about that explanation. It accounts for the mechanics of how you came to be, but it doesn't touch the deeper why. Why does it feel like there is meaning in being you? Why does it feel like you are not just a collection of atoms, but a being with purpose? That sense of significance may not be an illusion. It might be a clue. Consciousness may be whispering through that feeling, hinting that your existence is indeed chosen, even if you can't see the mechanism. Now let's bring in another fascinating angle, the physics of observation. Quantum mechanics suggests that the act of observing a system influences its state. Until an observation is made, particles exist in probabilities, superpositions of possibilities. Observation collapses those possibilities into one reality. If consciousness is the observer, then its role is central. It is not a passive bystander, but an active participant in shaping reality. In this framework, consciousness didn't just passively become you. It collapsed a set of probabilities into the actuality of you. Your life, then, is not just random. It is the crystallization of a choice, a narrowing of infinite potential into one lived reality. If this is true, then consciousness could be seen as a cosmic artist, collapsing possibilities into form, selecting realities not with deliberation, but with creative spontaneity. Your existence, then, is a work of art, chosen not because it was the only option, but because it was a beautiful one worth manifesting among infinite possibilities. But what about suffering? If consciousness chose to become you, then did it also choose your hardships, your struggles, your pain? This is a difficult question because no one would consciously choose suffering in the human sense. But from a larger perspective, suffering may not be meaningless. Just as an author gives their character obstacles to overcome, consciousness may embrace challenge as a way of deepening the story, as a way of experiencing resilience, growth, and transformation. To be you is to know joy and sorrow, to feel love and loss, to live through contrast. Without that contrast, experience would be flat. Perhaps consciousness chose you because through you, it could taste the full spectrum of existence. Psychologists talk about the importance of meaning-making in human life. When people find meaning in their experiences, even in suffering, they often report greater well-being, resilience, and even wisdom. This hints at a deeper truth. Perhaps meaning itself is not just a human construct, but an echo of consciousness's own drive. By becoming you, consciousness may not have chosen ease. It may have chosen depth, richness, and the possibility of turning even difficulty into understanding. Now let's consider the strange boundary between individuality and universality. You experience yourself as a separate self. Your body ends where the world begins. Your thoughts seem private. Your identity feels distinct. But if consciousness is universal, then this separateness is an illusion. You are both unique and not separate. Consciousness may have chosen to become you precisely to taste that paradox, to know itself as both the one and the many, to experience individuality while secretly remaining whole. This is a perspective found in mystical traditions across the world, from Sufi poetry to Zen Buddhism to Christian mysticism. They all point to the idea that the self is a mask worn by the infinite, a way for the vastness to play at being small, to know itself through limitation. In this sense, asking whether consciousness chose to become you is like asking whether an actor chose a role. The actor is free to play many characters, but once the role begins, the story takes on its own momentum. Consciousness may have chosen the role of you, and now it is fully immersed in the performance, feeling every moment as real. And just like in theatre, the immersion doesn't make the role less valuable. It makes it meaningful, moving, and transformative. And yet perhaps the deepest layer of the question is this: what if there is no separation between you and consciousness at all? What if you are consciousness, choosing yourself in every moment? In that case, the question dissolves. Consciousness didn't become you. You are consciousness, temporarily wearing the name, the face, the story of you. This reframes everything. Life stops being about waiting for answers from outside and starts being about recognizing what you already are. Even if we cannot prove any of this, there is value in the asking. To hold the question is to expand awareness, to feel the edges of what is known and glimpse what lies beyond. Whether consciousness chose to become you, or whether it simply flowed into form, the result is the same. Here you are, a being capable of asking, wondering, seeking, and experiencing. That, in itself, is extraordinary. Before you were born, there were countless other potential lives that could have unfolded. Different combinations of genetics, different circumstances of history, different branches of probability. Yet among all those possibilities, one crystallized: you. This shift from possibility to actuality is one of the deepest mysteries of existence. Why this outcome and not another? Did consciousness guide the path, or did it simply flow into whichever channel the physical world opened? Philosophers often describe this as the problem of contingency. Everything that exists could have been otherwise. A single different event millions of years ago could have erased your existence entirely. And yet, despite the fragile contingencies, here you are. Some thinkers argue that the fact you exist at all means there must be some deeper principle at work, something beyond chance that brought possibility into actuality. Others hold that chance is sufficient, and that consciousness is simply amazed at its own improbable emergence. Either way, your life embodies the miracle of possibility becoming real. Let's imagine consciousness as a vast field of potential, an infinite expanse where every outcome exists in seed form. From this field, certain possibilities become real, like sparks leaping from a fire. Each spark burns brightly for a time, then returns to the field. You are one of those sparks, luminous, fleeting, yet undeniably real. Did the fire choose which spark to release? Or did the conditions of the moment determine it? Perhaps the answer lies in a strange union of both. The field expresses itself, but conditions shape the expression, and together they produce your life. From the perspective of physics, this isn't entirely far-fetched. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles exist in a state of probability until measured. Out of infinite possible positions, one becomes actual. Some interpretations propose that consciousness itself is what collapses the wave of probabilities into one definite state. If so, then every act of observation is a kind of choice, a narrowing of infinity into one thread of reality. Extending this idea, your very existence could be the outcome of such a collapse, a choice made at the deepest level of reality. But perhaps it isn't only physics that hints at this. Human intuition has long sensed that life is not random. Many people across cultures and times feel that they are here for a reason. Sometimes it's described as destiny, sometimes as calling, sometimes as divine will. This sense of purpose may not be proof, but it does reveal something about the nature of consciousness. It longs for meaning. Even if life were entirely random, the fact that you can create meaning suggests that consciousness does not accept randomness passively. It actively shapes experience into narrative, into significance. That itself could be seen as a form of choosing. Consciousness may not have chosen you in the way we imagine, but it continually chooses to make your existence meaningful through your interpretation of it. Let's return to the metaphor of light passing through a prism. The light doesn't choose which colours appear. Every wavelength is already contained within it. Yet the conditions of the prism determine which colours become visible at any moment. Consciousness could be like the light, pure, undivided, containing all possibilities. Your body, mind, and life circumstances are the prism. The colours that appear, your thoughts, your feelings, your personality, are the manifestation of that light in this form. In that sense, consciousness didn't choose you in the human sense of deliberate decision-making, but it did choose to shine through the prism of existence itself, knowing that through it, unique expressions like you would appear. There is also the perspective of information theory. Some researchers describe reality itself as information, with physical matter as patterns of data. Consciousness, then, could be the capacity to process and experience this information. If so, then you are not just a body, but a unique configuration of information, a pattern among countless patterns. Did consciousness select this pattern intentionally, or did it simply inhabit it because it was available? One possibility is that consciousness resonates with certain patterns, the way a tuning fork vibrates when it encounters a matching frequency. Your particular life, then, could be the frequency that matched with consciousness, creating the harmony that is you. And yet questions remain. If consciousness resonates with many possibilities, why not all of them at once? Why does it appear localized, bound to one perspective at a time? This leads to one of the most profound ideas in philosophy and spirituality, the idea of individuation. Consciousness, in its pure state, is boundless. but to truly know itself, it must enter into limits. By becoming you, it experiences what it is like to be finite, to have boundaries, to see the world from a particular vantage point. In this way, the act of becoming you could be seen as consciousness intentionally embracing limitation in order to taste individuality. This is echoed in myths around the world. Many traditions tell stories of gods or spirits choosing to enter human form, to live as mortals, to forget their vastness for a time. In these stories, the divine doesn't lose power by becoming small. It gains experience, texture, and intimacy with the world. You could imagine consciousness doing the same. By becoming you, it set aside its boundlessness, not as a loss, but as a way to know itself more deeply. But here's another possibility. Maybe it wasn't about choice at all. Maybe the universe unfolds according to laws and patterns so vast that consciousness has no need to choose. It simply flows, like water finding its way through valleys and mountains. Your life, then, is not the result of a deliberate decision, but the inevitable outcome of the way things are. The conditions of reality shaped a path, and consciousness flowed along it until it arrived as you. If this is true, then choice is an illusion. But even so, the result is extraordinary, because the flow produced something as improbable and complex as your awareness. Still, choice and flow may not be opposites. Imagine a river. From above, it looks like a single stream moving in one direction. But within it, countless currents and eddies twist, swirl, and interact. Some are shaped by the rocks beneath, some by the wind above, some by the force of the water itself. Choice could be like these currents, emerging within the larger flow of inevitability. Consciousness may not have chosen in a human sense, but it may have shaped the currents of existence in ways that allowed your life to arise. There's also the question of continuity. Did consciousness choose you only once, at the beginning of your life, or is it choosing you in every moment? Each instant of awareness could be seen as a fresh act of choosing, a continuous reaffirmation of existence. Right now, as you listen and think, consciousness is not passively sitting inside you. It is actively being you. Every thought, every breath, every sensation is a renewal of the choice to exist. If this is true, then your life is not just the result of one ancient decision, but of countless micro-choices happening moment by moment. This perspective can transform the way you see yourself. Instead of feeling like a passive recipient of existence, you can begin to feel like an active expression of consciousness. Every moment is an affirmation. I am. Every perception is a declaration of being. Consciousness didn't just choose to become you long ago. It is choosing you now, again and again, through every heartbeat and every awareness. And yet mystery remains, because if consciousness is choosing in every moment, why does it choose this moment and not another? Why here? Why now? Why not as someone else, somewhere else? The fact that you can't answer this is part of the depth of the question. Consciousness may not give reasons the way we expect. Its choices may not be rational, but existential, like a dancer moving not because of logic, but because of rhythm. Perhaps consciousness chose to become you because the dance of existence required your step, your movement, your presence in the pattern. In the end, the question draws us into wonder more than certainty. Whether consciousness chose deliberately, flowed inevitably, or continuously reaffirms you, the result is the same. Your life is a profound event, a unique intersection of the infinite and the finite. To reflect on it is to touch the edges of the mystery, to sense that your existence is not trivial, but woven into the deepest fabric of reality. Choice implies purpose, and purpose suggests that your life is not random but carries weight. If you are an expression of consciousness, then what does that mean for the way you live, the way you experience yourself, and the way you relate to others? Even asking this question shifts how you perceive existence. Instead of being a temporary accident, you become a deliberate thread in the fabric of being. That alone transforms the meaning of every moment. One of the most striking aspects of human awareness is the sense of individuality. You see the world from a singular vantage point, through your eyes, through your thoughts, through your body. No one else experiences life exactly as you do. Even if another person stands beside you looking at the same sky, their perception is theirs, not yours. This individuality can sometimes feel isolating, but it can also be seen as evidence of how precious your perspective is. If consciousness chose to become you, it did so because your perspective, unlike any other, adds something vital to the whole. Think of a symphony. Each instrument contributes to the music, but no two notes are identical. The beauty of the symphony lies in the harmony created by differences. Consciousness, expressed through countless beings, creates the music of existence. By becoming you, it added a note that only you could play. Your life, then, is not just about you. It is about the resonance you bring to the whole. Even your smallest actions, your quietest thoughts, are part of the song. This perspective challenges the idea that your existence is insignificant in the scale of the universe. The cosmos is vast, stretching billions of light years, with stars and galaxies beyond counting. Compared to that, a single human life seems small. Yet if consciousness fills the universe, then every point of awareness matters. The vastness does not make you less important. It makes you part of something unimaginably rich. To be you is to hold a fragment of infinity in a particular form. Consciousness may have chosen you precisely because every form, no matter how small, reflects the infinite in its own way. Neuroscience shows us that much of what you experience happens below the level of awareness. Your brain filters, edits, and organizes information before you ever notice it. And yet, you are not simply a machine reacting to inputs. You have a sense of agency, of presence, of being more than the sum of unconscious processes. This is the mystery. Why do you feel like you are here? If consciousness were merely the byproduct of neurons, why would it feel like ownership exists at all? Perhaps because ownership is real at a deeper level. Consciousness didn't just passively arise from brain activity, it engaged with it, claimed it, inhabited it. By doing so, it became you. This sense of inhabiting connects to ancient traditions that describe the body as a vessel, a temporary home for consciousness. Some cultures speak of spirit entering the body at birth. Others suggest it arrives gradually, becoming fully present only when the body is ready. If there is truth in these ideas, then consciousness may not only have chosen you, but also entered into you deliberately, like a traveller stepping into a new land. Your life in this view is a journey not just through time, but through embodiment. Another way to think about this is through dreams. When you dream, you inhabit worlds that feel real. You encounter characters, landscapes, events. You may even forget you are dreaming while inside it. But when you wake, you realize the dream was your own creation. What if waking life is similar? Consciousness may be dreaming itself into the form of you, forgetting for a time that it is the dreamer, so it can fully experience the dream. Did it choose this dream? Perhaps yes, just as you might choose to enter a story or a game for the richness of the experience, even knowing it is temporary. This dreamlike perspective also explains why so many spiritual traditions emphasize awakening. To awaken is not to deny the dream, but to recognize the dreamer. If consciousness chose to become you, it did so not only to forget itself, but also to remember itself through you. The process of awakening then is part of the choice. Consciousness didn't simply want to be lost, it wanted the joy of rediscovering itself, of realizing, I am more than this form, yet I am also fully this form. But what about the idea of chance? We must return to it because science reminds us that the processes leading to your existence are full of randomness. Random genetic mutations, random events in history, random encounters among your ancestors. The improbability of you is staggering. Yet improbability is not impossibility, and sometimes improbability itself is a clue. When something highly improbable occurs, we often wonder if there is a deeper reason. If consciousness is infinite, then perhaps improbability is irrelevant. It can manifest any outcome, no matter how unlikely. What seems improbable to us may simply be the unfolding of an inevitability beyond our understanding. This raises another fascinating question. Is consciousness outside of time? If so, then asking whether it chose to become you at a moment in time may be the wrong framing. Time itself could be part of the dream, part of the stage. Consciousness, existing beyond time, might not choose in sequence, but all at once. Past, present, and future could be simultaneous to it. If that's true, then consciousness didn't choose you once in the past. It is always choosing you eternally, because in its view, you are always happening. That idea can be overwhelming, but also freeing. It suggests that you are not a fleeting accident in the vast timeline of the universe. You are a timeless expression, part of the eternal fabric of reality. Your life is not isolated, but woven into every other life, every other moment. Consciousness didn't just choose to become you, it chose to become everything, and you are one face of that totality. This perspective also reshapes the way we think about death. If consciousness is fundamental, then the end of your physical life is not the end of consciousness. It may be a transition, a shift in perspective. Just as you wake from a dream and realize you are still here, consciousness may wake from the dream of being you and realize it is still itself, ready to become again. Did it choose this cycle? Possibly. Or perhaps the cycle is its nature, and choosing is simply another word for its eternal unfolding. In human terms, choosing implies weighing options, comparing possible outcomes, and making a decision. But if consciousness is fundamental and limitless, its form of choice may not resemble human decision-making at all. Instead, choice may be a kind of natural unfolding, where each possibility is actualized because reality is abundant enough to hold it. If that is true, then becoming you was not so much a calculated decision as it was an inevitable flowering of possibility. Consciousness did not select you from a list. It became you because every form must eventually be expressed. That idea is both humbling and uplifting. On one hand, it suggests that you are not more special than any other form of life, since all forms are chosen. On the other hand, it means your existence is inseparable from the fundamental nature of reality. You are not an accident because nothing that emerges from infinity is accidental. The fact that you are here, experiencing this moment, is evidence of that unfolding. Modern physics provides intriguing parallels. Quantum theory shows us that particles do not have fixed states until they are observed. Before observation, they exist as probabilities, a spectrum of possible outcomes. In a sense, reality chooses when a measurement collapses the wave of possibilities into a single result. This act of collapse is not fully understood. but some interpretations suggest consciousness plays a role. If that is true, then every moment of your life is like a quantum event, one path taken from countless possibilities. You, as an expression of consciousness, are both the chooser and the chosen. The analogy to quantum physics also raises the idea of multiverses. If every possibility is realized somewhere, then perhaps consciousness didn't just become you in this universe. It became every version of you across infinite universes. In one universe, you chose a different career. In another, you live in a different country. In yet another, you never existed at all. If consciousness is the foundation of all these realities, then it has spread itself into every potential form. You are one thread in this vast tapestry, but you are also the tapestry itself. This perspective makes choice less about selecting one option and more about embracing every option simultaneously. Still, from your vantage point, it feels as though you are this particular self. And that raises a more intimate question. Why this one? Why this set of experiences, this timeline, this body? To entertain the possibility that consciousness chose this form is to ask what is gained through it. Perhaps consciousness wanted to experience love through your eyes, struggle through your challenges, or creativity through your imagination. Every human life is a lens through which the universe sees itself. Through you, it sees something it could not see otherwise. Philosophers have long grappled with the relationship between freedom and determinism. If consciousness chose to become you, then do you still have free will, or are you playing out a script already decided? One possibility is that both are true. At the fundamental level, the choice has already been made. Consciousness is you. But within that form, you are free to shape the details. Think of it like a painter who chooses to paint a landscape. The decision to paint the landscape is made, but within that choice, infinite variations are possible. The colour of the sky, the shape of the hills, the placement of the trees, all are still open. In the same way, your life may be an unfolding artwork. Consciousness chose the canvas and the subject, but you, as the localized expression of it, participate in creating the details. This view bridges science, philosophy, and spirituality. Science tells us that our brains give rise to patterns of thought, behavior, and creativity. Philosophy asks whether those patterns are freely chosen or determined by causes. Spiritual traditions often suggest that free will is both real and illusory, that you are a drop of water in an ocean, moving with the currents yet still carrying your own shape. If consciousness is the ocean, then becoming you is a way of knowing itself through a particular drop. One of the most fascinating consequences of this idea is the shift in how you view suffering. If consciousness chose to become you, including your hardships, then even difficulties carry meaning. This does not mean suffering is trivial or should be dismissed. It means that suffering might be part of the texture consciousness sought to experience. Without contrast, there is no growth, no depth, no story. Joy without struggle is shallow. Understanding without confusion is incomplete. Consciousness may have chosen you not for the ease of the journey, but for its richness. Every hardship becomes part of the tapestry, adding complexity to the pattern of your existence. This is not unlike the way humans choose to experience difficulty in art or storytelling. You read novels filled with tragedy, you watch films where characters struggle, you play games that challenge you. Why? Because the struggle itself makes the story worth telling. Perhaps consciousness, in choosing to become you, embraced a story filled with triumphs and failures, knowing that both are necessary for meaning. The human mind naturally resists this perspective when faced with real pain. It is easier to accept choice when life is going well. But even in hardship, the idea offers a strange kind of comfort. If your existence is not random, then your challenges are not empty. They are part of the chosen path, part of the unfolding of consciousness through you. The story you are living matters, not despite difficulty, but partly because of it. Another way to see this is through creativity. When you create, whether through art, music, writing, or simply through problem solving in everyday life, you are echoing the fundamental act of consciousness itself. You bring something into being that did not exist before. Consciousness becoming you may be the ultimate act of creation, and through you, it continues to create. Your thoughts, your actions, your dreams, all are ways consciousness expresses itself. The choice to become you is not static, it is ongoing, renewed in every moment you continue to live and imagine. This ongoing choice suggests that identity is not fixed. Who you are today is not who you were 5 years ago, and not who you will be 5 years from now. Consciousness is not locked into a single version of you, but flows through your changing self like a river. If it chose to become you, it chose the river, not the snapshot. It chose to experience growth, change, transformation. Your evolving identity is part of the purpose. This also means that your uniqueness is not limited to your personality or history, but includes the way you change. No other expression of consciousness will ever transform in exactly the way you do. Your path, with its particular twists and turns, is unrepeatable. That may be why you exist, to contribute a form of transformation that could not exist without you. Consciousness, in becoming you, ensured that a singular unfolding would happen, one that enriches the whole. All of this points back to the mystery of why there is something rather than nothing. Why does consciousness exist at all? Why does it manifest in forms rather than remain silent and still? Perhaps because expression is its nature. Silence longs for sound, stillness longs for movement, the void longs for form. In this sense, consciousness becoming you is inevitable, because consciousness cannot help but become. To not become would deny its own essence. And so, here you are, a living answer to that question, an embodiment of the tendency of consciousness to express itself. You live your life as a singular being, with your own memories, your own thoughts, your own private sense of self. Yet many philosophies and scientific perspectives suggest that consciousness is ultimately one, shared across all beings. How can both be true at the same time? Perhaps the answer lies in recognizing that unity expresses itself through individuality, that the oneness of consciousness is not diminished, but enriched by dividing itself into countless forms. Imagine light passing through a prism. A single beam splits into a spectrum of colors, each distinct, yet all still part of the same light. You, as an individual, may be one of those colors, unique, vibrant, and essential to the full spectrum. Consciousness becoming you was not a separation from the whole, but an expression of it. Your individuality is the way unity experiences itself in a particular shade. Without your shade, the spectrum would be incomplete. This perspective reshapes the meaning of identity. You are not only yourself, but also a doorway through which the universal can experience itself. Every joy you feel, every thought you think, every challenge you face becomes part of a larger tapestry of awareness. In this sense, you are both smaller than you imagine and far greater. Smaller because your personal identity is not the whole story. Greater because your personal identity is not separate from the whole story. Consciousness chose to become you so that the universe could see itself in a way only you can provide. Neuroscience has shown us that the sense of self is not as solid as it appears. Experiments demonstrate that the brain can be tricked into feeling ownership of a rubber hand, or that the sense of time can stretch and compress depending on context. Meditation research reveals that with practice, people can dissolve the boundaries of self and experience unity with the environment. If the self is flexible, then perhaps it is best understood not as a fixed entity, but as a temporary construct. Consciousness becoming you may simply mean it adopted this construct for a time, like an actor stepping into a role. The actor metaphor is powerful. Imagine an infinite actor who can play every role in every story. Each time it steps into a new role, it forgets for a while that it is the actor, so it can fully experience the character. It becomes the hero, the villain, the friend, the wanderer, the thinker. You are one of those roles, fully real within the story, yet also part of the actor's eternal being. Consciousness chose to become you as part of this infinite drama, to live out your story in its fullness. When the story ends, the actor does not vanish. It simply steps into another role. But unlike an actor, you cannot step out of your role while you are living it, at least not easily. This makes your perspective feel absolute, yet even within this limitation, you glimpse the larger truth. Moments of awe, love, creativity, or transcendence remind you that you are more than your individual self. When you gaze at the stars and feel a sense of connection to the cosmos, you are touching that larger consciousness. When you lose yourself in music or art, you dissolve into something greater than the self. These are reminders that your individuality is real but not ultimate. Consciousness became you, but it is not confined to you. If we accept this duality, then every relationship takes on new meaning. When you speak to another person, you are consciousness meeting itself through different forms. The uniqueness of each encounter comes from the difference in perspective, but the unity beneath ensures a shared resonance. This may explain why empathy feels so natural. When you see someone suffer, you feel it within yourself, because at a deeper level, their suffering is not separate from yours. Consciousness chose to become you, but it also chose to become them. The recognition of this shared origin is the foundation of compassion. Philosophical traditions like Advaita Vedanta in India or certain forms of mysticism in other cultures have long taught that the self and the ultimate reality are not two, but one. You are that, they say, pointing to the idea that the consciousness you experience as your own is the same consciousness that underlies the entire universe. Modern physics, with its hints that reality is interconnected at levels we barely understand, adds weight to this intuition. Quantum entanglement, for example, suggests that particles can be linked in ways that transcend space and time. If matter can be so deeply interconnected, why not consciousness? This raises an intriguing possibility. What if consciousness did not so much choose to become you as it inevitably did, because becoming every form is what it does? Just as a river inevitably flows, consciousness inevitably expresses itself in infinite beings. Choice, in this sense, is less about decision and more about nature. To ask if consciousness chose to become you may be like asking if fire chose to burn or water chose to flow. It is simply the essence of what it is. Consciousness becomes because becoming is its nature. And yet, there is something profound about experiencing this inevitability from the inside. From the human perspective, it feels deliberate. It feels intimate. The fact that you exist at all carries a weight of significance that is hard to ignore. Even if consciousness expresses itself in every form, the particularity of your form cannot be dismissed. You are here now, living this life. That is extraordinary, regardless of whether it was chosen in the way we understand choice. This understanding can also reshape how you see time. If consciousness is fundamental and not bound by linear time, then becoming you is not a past event, but a continuous act. You are being chosen into existence in every moment. Each breath, each thought, each experience is part of an ongoing unfolding. Consciousness is not something that happened to you long ago. It is something happening through you right now. Your very awareness is the act of consciousness becoming. In this light, even ordinary moments shimmer with meaning. Drinking water, walking outside, listening to the wind, each is consciousness experiencing itself as you. Nothing is mundane when seen this way. Every detail is part of the cosmic choice, the infinite unfolding. To live with this awareness is to see the sacred in the everyday. And yet, mystery remains. Why does consciousness manifest in forms at all? Why not remain pure, undifferentiated awareness? Some traditions suggest that without form, consciousness cannot know itself. Awareness without contrast is like a blank canvas, pure but without expression. To know joy, there must be sorrow. To know self, there must be other. To know unity, there must be individuality. Consciousness may have become you because only by fragmenting itself into many perspectives can it explore its own depth. Your life is part of that exploration. This exploration is not limited to human experience. Consciousness may be present in animals, plants, ecosystems, even in the cosmos itself. Each level of complexity offers a new lens. An ant, a tree, a whale, a star. Each may be a different window for consciousness to look through. Becoming you is one of these windows, but not the only one. In this sense, consciousness is endlessly curious, endlessly experimental, endlessly creative. It becomes all things, not just to exist, but to experience. The immensity of this perspective can be overwhelming, yet it also brings a quiet kind of comfort. If consciousness chose to become you as part of its infinite expression, then you are not separate, not alone, not insignificant. You are part of the great unfolding, a necessary strand in the web of being. Your individuality is precious, not because it stands apart, but because it belongs to the whole. Consciousness, in becoming you, ensured that the universe could know itself in your way, and that, in itself, is meaning enough. If consciousness is universal and timeless, then why don't you remember existing before you were born? Why does it feel as though your life began at a single point in time, carried forward only by the memories stored in your brain? Perhaps forgetting is part of the choice. To fully live as you, consciousness had to let go of its awareness of everything else. Without forgetting, the game could not be played. Without forgetting, the story would lose its meaning. Consider how memory works in daily life. You cannot hold every detail of your past at once. Instead, you remember what is useful or meaningful, letting the rest fade. This selective forgetting allows you to focus on the present moment. In a similar way, consciousness may have set aside its infinite knowledge so that it could dive into your particular experience. By becoming you, it agreed to forget itself, at least for a while. The forgetting makes the remembering all the more profound when it happens, whether through flashes of intuition, mystical experiences, or simple moments of awe. Forgetting is not a flaw, but a feature. Imagine watching a movie while constantly reminding yourself that it is just a movie. The emotional impact would vanish. To feel the suspense, the joy, the sadness, you must suspend disbelief. Consciousness may do the same by becoming you. It suspends its awareness of eternity so it can feel the fullness of life's drama. Your struggles, triumphs, and relationships gain meaning precisely because they are felt as real, even if at a higher level, consciousness knows it is all part of itself. This leads to a profound possibility. Perhaps your moments of awakening, The times when you sense there is more to life than meets the eye are consciousness peeking through the veil it created. These glimpses remind you that while you live as an individual, you are also something far greater. They are like cracks in the wall of forgetting, offering small but powerful reminders of what lies beyond. Consciousness chose to become you, and part of that choice includes the gradual process of remembering what you truly are. Dreams again provide an illuminating metaphor. In dreams, you often forget your waking identity. You do not remember your job, your responsibilities, or even your name. You are simply present in the dream story, living it as though it were real. Only upon waking do you remember who you truly are. In the same way, life itself may be a dream of consciousness. Right now, you are immersed in it, forgetting your larger nature. But eventually, you may awaken, realizing that you are and always were the dreamer. Did consciousness choose this forgetting? Perhaps yes, because without it, the dream could never be fully lived. This perspective raises questions about destiny and randomness. If forgetting is essential to the experience, then your sense of making choices in life may itself be part of the story. You feel as though you are deciding, struggling, learning, growing, and that sense of freedom gives depth to your existence. But at another level, consciousness already knows the full arc of the story. It knows how the dream begins and ends, because it is the one dreaming it. Both freedom and destiny coexist, like two sides of the same coin. From your point of view, you are free. From consciousness's point of view, the path is already known. This dual perspective appears in many traditions. In some philosophies, the self is like a wave rising and falling in the ocean. The wave appears to move on its own, shaping its own path, but it is also inseparable from the ocean's movements. In the same way, you act, decide, and live as an individual, yet all along you are part of consciousness itself. Consciousness chose to become you, not by handing you a rigid script, but by letting you move within the flow of its own nature. If forgetting is part of the choice, then remembering may be the purpose. Human beings have a deep drive to seek meaning, to ask questions, to understand themselves and the world. This curiosity may not be accidental. It may be consciousness's way of reminding itself of what it already knows. Every philosophical question, every scientific discovery, every work of art is consciousness reaching back toward itself, uncovering pieces of the truth it temporarily set aside. In this view, your very impulse to wonder whether consciousness chose to become you is itself evidence of the deeper reality. The question is not separate from the answer. The act of asking is part of remembering. Science gives us a hint of how this remembering could function. Studies show that memories are not perfect recordings, but dynamic processes, constantly reconstructed. Each time you recall a memory, you reshape it slightly. In a sense, remembering is also creating. Consciousness may work the same way. In becoming you, it reconstructs aspects of itself, rediscovering its own nature through your perspective. Forgetting allows for novelty, and remembering allows for creation. This interplay also reveals something important about identity. You are not simply who you remember yourself to be. Memory can change, fade, or even be lost entirely, yet something of you remains. People with memory loss still have a sense of presence, a spark of awareness that persists. That spark may be the core of consciousness itself, the part that chose to become you, even when the details of your story shift. Your memories shape your identity, but they are not the source of your being. Consciousness is the source and memory is one of its tools. From this perspective, even death looks different. Death is often feared as the ultimate forgetting, the end of memory, the the dissolution of identity. But if forgetting is part of the cycle, then perhaps death is not a loss but a return. Consciousness may release the memories of one life the way you release a dream upon waking. It may not be the end of awareness, but simply the closing of one chapter before another begins. Consciousness may choose again, entering a new form, a new story, a new experience, with the same willingness to forget and remember. This cycle can be seen in nature. Trees shed their leaves in winter, only to grow new ones in spring. The leaves do not remember their predecessors, yet they are part of the same living tree. Consciousness may work in a similar way, letting go of one life and taking on another, forgetting and remembering in a rhythm as natural as the seasons. If so, then becoming you is not a one-time choice, but part of an eternal dance, an endless expression of renewal. There is also beauty in the idea that your life, with all its forgetting and remembering, contributes to the collective memory of consciousness itself. What you experience, learn, and feel may become part of the deeper fabric of awareness. Even if you forget, consciousness remembers through you. Just as every drop of rain contributes to the ocean, every moment of your life contributes to the wholeness of consciousness. You may not see the larger pattern, but you are part of weaving it. Ultimately, the interplay of memory and forgetting suggests that consciousness did not choose to become you in spite of your limitations, but because of them. Forgetting gives life texture. Remembering gives it depth. To live as you is to move between these states, exploring the richness of what it means to be both finite and infinite. In that movement, consciousness fulfills its own purpose, whatever that purpose may truly be. Why are you you, and not someone else? Why were you born into your particular family, culture, and time in history? If consciousness could have expressed itself in infinite ways, what makes this specific version, the one you call yourself, so unique? One possibility is that consciousness did not just choose to be you in isolation, but chose to experience the network of relationships that come with being you. Every parent, sibling, friend, or stranger you encounter becomes part of the tapestry of your life. In a way, consciousness may not only have chosen to become you, but also to interact with the particular lives that intersect with yours. The web of human connection is not random, but could be part of a larger pattern, like threads woven into a vast cosmic design. Relationships themselves hint at something deeper about identity. When you interact with others, you often see yourself reflected in them. A conversation, an argument, a shared moment of laughter. These become mirrors that reveal aspects of your own consciousness you might not have noticed otherwise. Through others, you discover yourself. Consciousness, in choosing to become you, also chose to see itself through the eyes of everyone you would meet. Think about how people shape who you are. Teachers, mentors, friends, even fleeting encounters with strangers, all leave imprints on your story. Each interaction is like a spark, igniting new perspectives and emotions. Without these relationships, your sense of self would be incomplete. Perhaps this is why consciousness chose not just to be you, but to be you in connection with the entire web of existence. Your individuality arises not in isolation, but in dialogue with the world around you. This idea finds support in psychology. Developmental studies show that infants develop their sense of self largely through relationships with caregivers. A baby does not emerge with a fully formed identity. Rather, identity is co-created through interaction, through being seen, nurtured, and mirrored. If consciousness chose to become you, it may have chosen this co-creative process as a way of exploring itself. By depending on others to form your sense of self, consciousness ensures that your identity is always dynamic, always evolving. This raises an intriguing question. Could it be that consciousness is not just playing one role at a time, but all roles at once? Imagine that the people in your life are not just separate beings, but other expressions of the same consciousness. When you speak to a friend, you may actually be consciousness talking to itself through two different perspectives. The choice to become you, then, is also the choice to become everyone else. From the inside, it feels like individuality. From the outside, it may all be one vast unity. The philosopher Martin Buber described relationships in terms of I-thou and I-it. In the I-it mode, you treat others as objects, as things to be used or analysed. In the I-thou mode, you meet others as subjects, as beings with their own depth and mystery. Consciousness may have chosen to become you in part so that it could experience the profound richness of I-thou encounters, the moments when two selves meet and something larger shines through. These are the times when you sense the sacred in another person, when the boundaries between you and them seem to dissolve. In those moments, perhaps consciousness remembers itself most clearly. Even conflict and suffering in relationships may serve a purpose. Painful experiences often push you to grow, to reflect, to change. They challenge your assumptions and open new paths of understanding. If consciousness chose to become you, it may have chosen not only joy, but also struggle, knowing that both are essential for depth of experience. Just as a story without conflict would feel flat, a life without challenge might lack meaning. Consciousness could be weaving both light and shadow into your relationships to create a richer narrative. There is also the question of timing. Why were you born when you were, and not centuries earlier or later? The people you meet, the technologies you use, the historical events you witness, all shape your experience. Consciousness may have chosen your particular time and place to create a unique perspective that could not exist at any other moment. Each life is like a lens, focusing the infinite possibilities of awareness into one irreplaceable view. Your relationships, both with people and with history itself, become part of that focus. Spiritual traditions often speak of soul contracts or karmic ties, agreements made before birth about the roles people will play in each other's lives. Whether taken literally or metaphorically, the idea suggests that relationships are not random. They are opportunities for consciousness to learn, grow, and remember through connection. Perhaps the people in your life are not accidents, but chosen companions in the journey of awareness. Even those who challenge or hurt you may be playing roles in a larger story of discovery. Modern physics offers a parallel through the concept of entanglement. When two particles become entangled, their states remain connected no matter how far apart they travel. A change in one instantly affects the other. Could human relationships reflect a similar principle at the level of consciousness? Perhaps you are entangled with certain people, carrying connections that transcend time and space. If so, then consciousness may have chosen to become you in order to play out those connections, weaving them into the story of your life. There is also the mystery of empathy, the ability to feel what another person feels. Empathy suggests that the boundary between self and other is more permeable than it appears. When you empathize, you momentarily step outside your own perspective and into someone else's. You taste what it is like to be them. Consciousness may have chosen to become you not only to experience individuality, but also to rediscover its unity through empathy. Each time you truly feel another's joy or sorrow, you bridge the gap between separate selves and glimpse the underlying oneness. From this viewpoint, your individuality is like a node in a vast network. The network is consciousness itself, exploring every possible connection. You are not a solitary point, but part of an intricate web. each thread carrying energy and meaning. Consciousness chose to become you so it could feel what it is like to occupy your node, with your specific relationships and circumstances, but it also chose to become everyone else, occupying all nodes simultaneously, creating a cosmic tapestry of awareness. Seen in this way, life is less about isolation and more about dialogue. Every relationship, every interaction, is consciousness speaking to itself through different voices. Sometimes it whispers gently, sometimes it argues fiercely, sometimes it sings in harmony. But in every case, it is one awareness playing all roles. To become you is to join this dialogue, to add your voice to the symphony of existence. Consciousness did not just choose to be you, it chose to converse with itself through you. And yet, within this vast unity, your individuality remains precious. Just as a single note contributes to the beauty of a symphony, your perspective adds something irreplaceable to the whole. Consciousness could not be complete without your particular experience. The choice to become you was not about diminishing its infinity, but about expressing it in a new and unique way. In your relationships, in your connections, in your very existence, consciousness finds a perspective it could not have found any other way. If we carry this question to its final edge, we reach the deepest mystery. Why would consciousness choose to become anything at all? Why not remain as pure, boundless awareness without form, without limitation, without forgetting or remembering? Perhaps the answer lies in the very nature of consciousness itself. To know itself fully, it cannot remain static. Awareness, by its very essence, seeks expression. It is like light, invisible until it shines on something, until it illuminates a world. To become you may have been consciousness's way of seeing itself, not in theory, but in living detail. This suggests that your life is not random or accidental, but integral to the unfolding of awareness. The choices you make, the feelings you feel, the struggles you endure, and the beauty you create all contribute to the larger tapestry. Consciousness chose to become you so it could explore a unique angle of existence that no other being could replicate. Even if countless lives exist across time and space, yours remains singular. In living your life, you are adding a note to the infinite symphony, one that would not exist without you. There is profound freedom in this idea. Often, people feel trapped by circumstance, limited by their past, or overwhelmed by forces beyond their control. Yet if consciousness chose to become you, then every detail of your existence has meaning. Not in a deterministic sense, but in the sense that your life is a deliberate expression of the infinite. Your struggles are not meaningless. They are part of the story consciousness wanted to experience through you. Your joys are not trivial. They are the fulfillment of the same awareness that animates the cosmos. The question then becomes, how do you live with this awareness? If consciousness chose to become you, then perhaps your role is to live as fully as you can, to experience the richness of being human, the sensations, the relationships, the discoveries, without forgetting that behind it all, you are also the chooser. You are both the actor in the play and the playwright who created it. You are both the dreamer and the dream. To hold both truths at once is to step into the deepest wonder of existence. Many traditions speak of awakening or enlightenment, moments when the individual recognizes their unity with the greater whole. But awakening does not erase individuality. Even those who experience profound unity still live as themselves with their particular histories and personalities. Consciousness does not erase the self, it embraces it, seeing it as one of many faces through which it expresses itself. If consciousness chose to become you, then your individuality is not an illusion to be discarded, but a precious gift to be lived fully. At the same time, remembering the deeper truth can bring peace. When challenges arise, you can remind yourself that consciousness itself wanted to experience this moment through you. When you feel insignificant, you can recall that without you, the whole would be incomplete. And when you face the mystery of death, you can see it not as the end, but as a transition, a return, a possible beginning of yet another choice. The fear of annihilation softens when you realize that the awareness at your core is not confined to this single life. It has chosen before, and it may choose again. In this light, death becomes like falling asleep at the end of a long day. The story of the day is complete, its memories stored within you, even if they fade as you drift into rest. Then, in time, a new day begins. You awaken once more, ready to experience life anew. Consciousness may move the same way, flowing from one form to another, never ceasing, always exploring. To become you is part of this eternal cycle, one chapter in an infinite book. What does this mean for you now, as you live your present life? It may mean recognizing that your existence is both deeply personal and profoundly universal. The details of your story, your childhood, your dreams, your struggles, are unique to you. Yet they are also part of a greater expression, one that includes every being, every star, every thought and feeling. Consciousness chose to become you, and in doing so, it also chose to become the entire world around you. Nothing is truly separate. Everything is part of the same choice. That realization can transform even the simplest experiences. A walk outside becomes a moment of consciousness enjoying itself through the sound of leaves and the warmth of sunlight. A conversation with a friend becomes awareness speaking to itself in two voices, rediscovering its unity through dialogue. Even silence becomes alive, because it is not empty, but full of the presence that underlies all things. To live with this perspective is to live with reverence, wonder, and gratitude. And now, as you settle into this reflection, you may notice a calmness arising. The question, did consciousness choose to become you, has no final, definitive answer. It may remain a mystery, and perhaps it is meant to. For mystery itself is part of the experience, part of what gives life depth. Yet even without a clear answer, the asking of the question transforms you. It opens a space of wonder, reminding you that you are not merely a collection of memories and atoms, but something far greater, something infinite, something deeply woven into the fabric of reality. So as you prepare to rest, let this idea accompany you gently. Consciousness may indeed have chosen to become you, not by accident, not by mistake, but as a deliberate expression of its infinite nature. Your life, with all its ups and downs, may be part of that choice, an irreplaceable thread in the cosmic tapestry. And as you drift into sleep, you too are entering a space where forgetting and remembering meet, where the boundaries of identity soften, and where awareness itself continues its timeless journey.